So the story began 2 years ago, before the Russian invasion to BTT, when I heard of the service and was curious if it was a whack, as people said. So I logged on to see, well, exactly what you'd expect when logging into BTT for the first time: Cobble, Obsidian, and Death. I explored for a bit, dodging either blasts and consuming food to get away from spawn, exploring many of the spawner builds that existed before the incursions or invasions that resulted in the demise. Honestly, it was pretty neat. Only died once to a creeper and got back up again. At some point, I got far enough out to get resources and started getting better equipped to survive in such a harsh place. Toughest part was navigating the Southern Ocean without a boat or hacks. Eventually, I just lost interest to pursue other games. But then, I heard of the infamous Russian invasion, which seemed to promise some fun times. So I grabbed my shield and burnished the emblem with a set of diamond armor and decided to get in on some action. I mean, I had no dupe stats, high tier gear, or gabbles, but I was fine. I was, however, too far away from spawn, so I made the hard choice of stashing what I had in an ender chest before committing rituals seppuku to get a spawn. So yeah, I had to outdo most of the first newbies when it came to getting out of spawn, which I did. Only got taken out once, before escaping and making it near the Melon Highway. Then I branched away and followed one of the trails over to Fortress. By this point, the GPS was so bad the Melons didn't really cut it, so I was starving as I was trying to get into the occupied fort. I used what blocks I could to burst through one of the windows and reach the guard inside with what hunger I had left. Then I realized someone in diamond was watching the entire thing and bearing the veteran's shield. I forget the exact user, but it was 42 underscore Terminator underscore something. At this point, I would like to say that the person he's trying to mention here, 43 underscore Terminator something, is actually a quite infamous TBTT player, Terminator. His name is 24 underscore Terminator underscore 80, and he's like pretty well known in the TBTT community. So just for historical reference, I just thought to make that like little parenthesis here. Let's continue. He seemed nice enough to not kill me, so I didn't bother breaking any more windows, as he was only there to defend the fort. So I left my mark using a sign, pretty sure it's destroyed now, and then got to gathering resources again to get back into the fight, since I had no ender chest. After mining what iron I could, I realized almost all the diamonds in the area were already mined, so I settled with what I had and with stacks of food. I went to the Melon Highway to take out the noobs. Got jumped by a guy with kill aura and logged before he could kill me. Then I realized I had a veteran queue since I was on the server before the Russian invasion, which gave me an edge. So I logged back in okay and went exploring till I found an ender chest in the snow and reclaimed my stuff from there to continue the fight. After quenching my bloodlust, I went exploring the spawn area for any structures or new players to satisfy myself till eventually I saw a group of players trying to get wood, hiding in a dirt sack. Honestly bad camouflage, so I killed them a bunch as they respawned from their bed. After a few dozen times, I got bored and took pity on them. So I asked them what brought them here, and they said they wanted to travel far out and build stuff. So I let them go. We eventually formed a group that wanted to travel out and build, so it was a small alliance to be had. We made a small base near spawn to get equipped for the journey, which went fine at first. We got stuff to survive and enchanted gear to protect ourselves, but over time they started to log in less and less, so I grew bored of being tied to the group and decided to venture off. I remembered that there was an ender portal near the Melon Highway, the same one Russia used, so I made plans to go there to find gear and maybe build something. So after a long journey back to spawn and some close encounters later, I finally reached the ender portal. The place itself was in bad shape, as to be expected when YouTubers make things public. That end portal was completely destroyed soon after, so I avoided a few withers and didn't bother with precautions and just jumped in. The animation was like it was now. The goal for the end was simple: get far out, get armor, elytra, sulkers, etc., and build up an arsenal. So I saw some pretty interesting things like bedrock on the floor and walkways that lead to nowhere, but eventually I reached the end islands and started looking for end cities. Miraculously, the first one I found still had shulkers, so I took what loot I could and kept moving, looking for an end test. After a few more island jumps and city lootings, I realized I had limited cobble and wood on me, so I had to ration my resources carefully. Pretty soon I was just running on chorus route, which was okay. I had an elytra, but elytras had been disabled, so I couldn't fly and or couldn't risk it. So I continued on foot for a few thousand blocks, until I saw a huge divide in the end islands. I just followed it till I saw a single chunk canal, which was strange for two reasons. One, because it was just there without any blocks to support it, and two, because if they were loaded in pre 1.2, there would be a much wider amount of chunks loaded. So I kept following it till I finally saw the culprit of the strange narration, a single airship with a pretty similar resemblance to some pilot that was known for a long time. So I inspected it and realized he must have died a long ways back, but somehow got all the way here. So I took a few screenshots and tweeted them to him, which he must have skimmed over. Either way, slime blocks and pistons were a commodity, so I wasn't going to pass up the chance. So I took what I needed and left my calling card and kept on exploring. I tossed whatever truss wasn't needed at the site and kept going, using the acid pods to traverse the end of my own with ambitions, of duping the resources to make a large CNC duping machine to level spawn. I just had to wait to get my chance to dupe resources. Eventually, the 1111 dupe came around, but I wasn't able to play around that time, so I wasn't able to dupe nearly as much stuff as I needed. So I just kept exploring on looting what I could. I forgot how far I got, but I managed to not die, so I was proud of myself. At some point, veteran queue was no longer a thing, so I logged on less until I just had no interest in playing anymore. Maybe retiring to a solitary place in the end was a more fitting end for someone exploring, reaching the farthest unexplored part of 2BTT, free of conflict.